Welcome to episode 452 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton. He's Levon, a.k.a. Barcelev. And as we await football to return after the short break in now less than 24 hours, we have just a few things left on the agenda before it's actually time to talk about football again, the way Xavi wanted to. And Levon, I do start with that Xavi press conference, but more the comments about Messi in that Xavi press conference, because we started the first show of the week with Messi, and I don't think many people say, hey, stop talking about Messi. I don't want to hear any more about him. So, of course, the press conference has already filtered out two different versions of the same quote, too. So, obviously, you were watching in Spanish, you were watching with Xavi. So, the different interpretations of this quote already are that, he doesn't want to talk about Messi, which is fair because there's work to be done in the season. But he did say, I like to talk about Messi. I would love to have him to come back. We are working on his return. It's a club of his life. It's normal that people are looking forward to Messi's last dance at Barcelona. And then the other way was much more about not the time to talk about it. Messi's return is an issue we're dealing with. I speak a lot with him. Hopefully we can see him back here. This is his home. So pretty much the same sentiment regardless of how his quotes were interpreted. But yeah, it seems like this Messi stuff isn't just, it would be a dream of Kool-Aid's and Messi FC for him to return. But this is a real thing that the club is it seems like looking at more than anything else as a priority.
Yeah, I mean, confession time. I did not actually watch or listen to the press conference. I read the transcript. That Mundo Deportivo and sports, like whenever Xavi gives the press conference, they do a summary of every answer that he gives. So
Yeah.
it's not a word for word transcript, but it's still pretty close to what he says. It's not as complete as the whole thing, but reading those transcripts still gives you a better idea of what he said. I mean, you just pull like different quotes. Sometimes I have time to actually listen to the thing. Often I do, even during my break. But today was unfortunately not one of those days. I was really busy. So one of the things is, like, I think they went back and asked him about Messi 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
That's
right.
why you're seeing all those different quotes. So he
Yeah.
starts out by saying that, hey, don't want to talk about Messi because it's not fair to the player, to the club, blah blah blah, the usual stuff. But then he almost immediately follows up by saying that he is in, like, I don't know if he said daily, but he made it sound as if he and Messi talk every day. So already there, like, that was like, okay, boom, wow. I don't want to talk about Messi. I don't want to talk about him, but I talk with Messi all the time.
Yeah.
And then after he naturally took it a step further, saying that it's completely Lionel Messi's decision. He did say that it might depend on fair play, but it is Leo's decision. So that obviously shows that, if Xavi talks about it that openly, Juste also talked about it quite openly the other day.
Well, I was going to say, and that to me, his comments, when the VP makes those comments about a Messi return, that always does flag it a bit more even than Xavi. Because again, Xavi he's not necessarily concerning himself with FFP and things like that. You want to switch that around, you're saying. You say just making promises.
Yeah, I say switch it around. A coach does not talk about this unless he has a pretty good idea that the club is trying to get him. Because a vice president, like, they talk just to talk sometimes.
Okay, hold on, wait. I do have to defend Yusei a little bit, because when he did come to New York, he did say to me and a few other of the podcasters and media here, he said that we do a great job. So I really think that Yusei, we just have to take him for his word at exactly what he says at all times.
No, but I'm just thinking in general.
But
Also, like, him saying that you did a great job just proves my point, really.
Okay, so
I'm just messing with you, but I think in general, like, when a coach actually goes and repeats a couple of times that he'd be very happy to have the guy at the club, and he actually alludes to two things like fair play, two things like, hey, it depends on what the player wants, then, I mean, obviously there's something going on there, because if not, Xavi would not say, not not
Yeah.
good for his team, not good for anybody. Whereas vice presidents, their words are sometimes taken with a grain of salt, where
Yeah.
they kind of, yeah, sometimes they speak because you think they want to make the fans happy, or this or that, or just to flex, or whatever. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this is the case for Houston, because I thought like what he said was quite measured.
Well,
Um,
yeah. Let's go
but
to the. I want you to really go deep on the sporting aspect, but from the non-sporting aspect, the FFP part of this, like it does. We were going to talk about the right back thing and then Ansu and kind of combine all that stuff together. Unfortunately, here because the number that I would guess for Messi, because they say, oh, he'll come for free. He's not going to come for free, but if he does come for, I mean, my guess would be 8 to 10 million. At that point, to choose to come to Barcelona to fit in their FFP, it seems like 8 to 10 would be the number. And I mean, who makes 13.8? Ansu Fati. And same thing with like, what would a right back make? A right back that we brought in, like to be a starter, would probably make around what, 6 to 8, or maybe more than 6, 8 to 9. And if they don't bring in a right back, and Ansu Fati's future over the summertime does not equal FC Barcelona, then now you're seeing where that 10 million begins with your first signing, as well as if Inigo Martinez, who seems to be done and dusted already, if he takes what is expected to be around 7 million, then that's where you're seeing your 18 million on the salary, that you would expect that even with financial constraints is doable and possible once the revenue changes and the wage limit goes up, which again
so
becomes from
so
Busquets coming off the books and all those different things, PK, and like you and I've talked about before.
Yeah, but there are a couple of things here to keep in mind. So yeah, Messi might accept a 5 million salary, or might accept to come for 1 million. It's one thing what we pay him, and it's the other thing what La Liga is going to accept that we pay him. Because we went through this with Dani Alves 1.5 seasons ago, or one year ago. It came halfway through the season, I believe, where Dani Alves came and he accepted minimum wage. And La Liga said, well, no, you might be paying him minimum wage, but we don't believe you. And we're going to enter his contract in the fair play system as if you guys are paying him 7 million. Because compared to what he used to earn, 7 million is reasonable. And
Yeah,
there's no way that he's accepting less. Now, if they do that with Messi, like how much does Messi make right now for Paris Saint-Germain?
I think it's, give me 1 second, I think it's upwards in like 38 or something like that.
38. So then La Liga might say, well,
Oh, I'm just kidding. No, he makes 63.6 right now.
so La Liga might say, well,
Gosh,
we don't believe that Messi is going to come for you for anything less than half of what he was making for Paris Saint-Germain.
that is true.
So that's 30 million right there.
Which does
And
replace, which actually half of that is about Busquets' salary. Interestingly enough, like
yeah, but
that,
you cannot, like, if Busquets
of
leaves, you
course,
cannot just replace him, because
you're already over your wage limit. Yeah, because they cannot see him for
we're
Gavi
already over
and
the wage
Rajo.
limit.
Yep, for sure.
So where's the money supposed to come from? I have no idea. One part of this is, say what you want about Bartomeu, but the club was making a lot of money. And if right now, post COVID, our 70% of income amounts to 400 million, which is what we need to go down to. And under Bartomeu, we were at almost 700 million. Like there's a huge discrepancy between what we used to earn and what we're earning now. People are saying
Yeah,
it's sponsorship.
well, I was gonna
Like
say home games in Montjuic next year, I think, are probably going to hurt a little bit of
home games are going to hurt in
proposed
Montjuic
revenue. Yeah,
for sure, definitely. The other thing that hurts is, well, people are saying sponsorships, but how, like, the main sponsors, we got them. So I'm a little puzzled where all of the other income came from. But you're mentioning Ansu Fati. How much are you going to sell Ansu Fati for? How many clubs are going to pay us a huge amount of money for Ansu Fati? And I don't want to sell Ansu Fati to begin with. But
yeah, likewise.
say you accept 60 million.
Yeah, I think there is a tax of having Jorge Mendes as his like by tax. I mean, I think Jorge Mendes can get a number between 50 and 70. I think for a 20-year-old I think Jorge Mendes, for like a Barcelona youngster who's 20 years old, I think Jorge Mendes gets a number. If it's another agent, like let's say reverse it, right? If it was Sissoko, Dembele's agent for Fati, I don't think
Mhm.
they get more than 25, 35. But I think Jorge Mendes can get you
True.
60.
Yeah, Jorge Mendes, maybe, but I mean, a player with Fati's injury history, who has played the way he has played for us this year, um, we might be getting a lot less, a
Mm-hmm.
lot less. And there's already like rumors floating that uh, if they were to leave, that they expect like for that figure to be 35, 40 million,
Which is what
which,
his market value is based on like transfer market and
yeah,
different sites
yeah.
like that.
And like, really, you're gonna sell Ansu Fati for 35 million? Like, so, yeah, if Messi comes back, we have to drop wage down to 200. A lot of things need to happen for that to be possible.
Yeah, I mean,
So
and that's just the non-sporting stuff. Like speaking of the
and that's
sporting
just the
stuff,
non-sport. Yeah,
yeah,
speaking of
like
the sporting stuff, yeah, it's more difficult even.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that jumps out to me the most is that it seems like Busquets is on the way to renewing. If Messi were to come, as counterintuitive it seems like, oh, that Messi and Busquets would want to be together. I don't. There's no way that you could have Busquets and Messi on the field to me um, at the same time anymore. Like I just because you can't fit. I mean, like Pedri and De Jong, you'd have to say Pedri and De Jong, you have to be able to do the job that defensive midfield. You have to be able to shore up that spot in behind Messi as well as you can.
I don't think Messi and Busquets are the problem as much as um, who do you have on the forward line? Because if you have Messi and
For sure.
Dembele and Lewandowski, then defensively that forward line, there's nobody who really compensates. Like, I think
Yeah, I
Lewandowski
mean,
and Dembele.
can I change my answer? Like, I don't know how Lewandowski and Messi coexist because even like people say, "Oh, have Messi playing behind him," and that's what Xavi has not even indicated, but he would play in more of a attacking midfielder role. But I don't understand, yeah, how Lewandowski because even looking at like Luis Enrique's time and I mean, what PSG should be doing is that whoever is not Messi, that being Mbappe at PSG, should be the one defending. Like they should be the one to drop in, and then
Mhm.
Messi is still that outlet farther forward. But Lewandowski hasn't truly been. I mean, he's been pressing. His pressing numbers are okay, but his pressing numbers are. I mean, kind of expected of a 34-year-old number 9 to be up there, and he does his job and he gets his goals and he has his position. But I think, yeah, I mean, defensively, I was pulling my hair out with Luis Suarez and Messi in those last 2 seasons. I mean, because
Yeah,
it wasn't working. Like they weren't pressing together, and
and
you can't
I
imagine
don't think
Lewandowski and Messi would do the
Lewandowski
same.
is. I don't think that Lewandowski is at the hamburger level of Luis Suarez,
Sure,
but
yeah, yeah,
he's not going to compensate
right.
for Messi's lack of defense. I think Dembele has improved a lot in his work rate, but he's not going to compensate for
Would
Messi's
you
lack
also
of
expect
defense.
Dembele to be on the left side then? I mean, is Messi going to technically be your right winger, right? Like if you still build up in a 3-2-5, that makes sense. Or if you make it a 2-3-5, it still makes sense to Messi to be occupying somewhere in the middle and tucking in. But then you have Koundé's not really getting forward at all as some kind of wide right fullback. I just think personnel wise, it is a really interesting question because the way this squad is built and the way it's changed at the moment, I don't see how he, from a sporting sense, totally just jams in there on the right wing. If anything, if he played on the left side, it would make things a little bit easier in theory. But I mean,
Yeah,
but
but
even then, because
you're not gonna waste his left foot on the left side.
no, of course you wouldn't do it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm saying you're not doing that. But I'm saying is like that the way the squad is constructed, yeah, there really isn't a spot for Messi, but of course there is always a spot for Messi because again, like even just
hmm
looking at like XG, right? Like what Barcelona knows if Xavi can make it all work, what Messi does for especially in La Liga, XG, like it kills it all. But again, you look at the team and defensively, giving up 9 goals in the Liga, regardless of the Champions League numbers, like giving up 9 goals in the Liga is not a fluke. Like over the course of a whole year, things tend to be true, right? And Messi, you have to believe, will upset some of the balance of that defensive solidity that the team has. But do you? I mean, that's a trade off. Like, can you
that,
trade that off for what Messi
that
contributes to you
that's
offensively?
that's a trade off. But offensively, like that's what worries me just as much as defensively. Of how does it fit offensively. And you know the player that is most compatible with Messi in
It's
our
Pedri.
offense? No,
I was
he's a
going to say Pedri.
midfielder. The our attacker who's most compatible with Messi.
Well, Rafinha is the most redundant, so that's a lot. That's the worst answer. I mean, is it Dembele? Is that? I mean, that has to be the answer, right?
No, it's Ansu.
Well,
It's
the
Ansu.
old Ansu.
Who finds the space
Hmm.
for Messi to pass to? That's Ansu coming from the left.
Yeah, I agree. It was Ansu. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like,
Mhm.
look at his numbers. Yeah, I mean, his goal per 90 with Messi was 0.61 and 0.84 in the 7 games that he played the year Messi left. Interestingly enough, last year it was a 1.07. So his goals per 90, that being Fati, got better last year in those moments that he was on the field. But again, yeah, this season is just 0.29, falling completely off a cliff. But wouldn't that be the
Mhm.
perfect story, right?
Yeah,
Ansu
but
sticks around and then Messi revives his career. I mean,
mhm.
that's the most that's the most Barcelona propaganda I've ever heard. But
Yeah, but
yeah, it'd be a great
An-
situation.
Ansu's movement hasn't suffered. He is fine physically. If Ansu is not okay physically, then his dad doesn't go crazy on TV saying Ansu should play, Ansu should play, Ansu should play. His dad will be worried about his son physically. You know, um, it's just his confidence. How are you going to get Ansu's confidence back up? Have Messi feeding him the ball. Have Messi, the veteran, who is no longer the goal scorer that he used to be, have him feed the ball to Ansu. Um, So you would have Messi, you would have Ansu. I would put Messi as a false nine, um, or maybe as like a false right winger, or what is being said a lot is that he would be like the fourth midfielder. But then that fourth midfielder would be a right wing midfielder.
Right. So I'm saying
Um,
you're
and,
taking out
and and
Dembele or Lewandowski, right? Like from
and
that situation, you take out one of them.
and you take out if he's a if he's on the right, then you're gonna need Lewandowski in the middle.
Hmm.
Um, But you're going to need Ansu on the left because Messi and Lewandowski. I don't know how compatible that is. You're going to have Lewandowski with nobody who actually crosses the ball to him. Every ball that he gets is either going to come from like in the current setup, Gavi on the right. There's no real service to Lewandowski. Messi, I said Gavi on the left. There's no real service to Lewandowski. M- Messi on the right. He's going to get the ball to Lewandowski, but he's never going to get to the end line and
Yeah.
get a cross in, and that's where Lewandowski is very strong, scoring wise, right? Um, with Messi on the right, in order to have a balanced defense, um, you're gonna need to continue to play Araujo or Koundé on the right, and they're not gonna um, give good
Yeah.
passes to Lewandowski either. So it's just a very weird setup.
I mean, I would
So
have a
so
lot of
so
faith
what you
in.
what you would need is Ansu on the left.
Yeah, I mean, I would have a lot of faith in that pass that Muller used to deliver Lewandowski for Bayern Munich, the one in that right half space that Lewandowski would run onto, and because of his
Hmm.
right foot, he could just swing around. I think you'd see a lot of easy goals scored that way. But I mean, I think from a sporting sense too, you have to sell Rafinha then, like immediately. Rafinha has to be the odd man out in that situation. Just like by bringing Messi in, you cannot have Messi, Dembele, and Rafinha all occupying. Again, even if Messi fit in at 10 million euros, you cannot have those three players all playing only exclusively basically on the right wing. I think, Dembele, yeah, would
Yeah.
get a lot of time on the left, but I mean, is
Or
Rafinha at 13.5 and again, Ansu at 13.8 and Dembele at 13.5, and then you have Messi at whatever he is, 10 to 15 million, if the league even accepts that, and you have all those players at right wing. I don't see how that's feasible. But
yeah,
I'll give you
but
the final word here, then we'll move on to another player.
so if you sell Rafinha for I don't know 70 million with the 75 million that we paid for him, you break even. But if you sell Dembele for 40 million, then that's 40 million of income that you can leverage.
Right.
But then again, Dem- Rafinha, if you tell him, hey, we're going to sell you, I think he's going to go along with it. Dembele, he always ends up doing what he wants, not what the club wants. And I'm
I
not
mean, the
saying that
club
I
has a
want,
great
and I'm not
relationship
saying
with
that
his
I'm
agent,
not
though.
saying that I want to. I'm not saying that I want us to sell Dembele.
Yeah,
I really, really, really like that player. Anyway,
yeah. I
it's
would say that
it's an
I would say that we
extremely complicated puzzle.
I would say that we have said nothing. Yeah, I would say that there's no there's nothing aggregate here. That having Messi back is, I mean, from a non-sporting and sporting aspect, is really interesting because of who he is, what he is, not only what he represents, but what he can still do. I mean, what he literally just won the World Cup like three
Yeah.
months ago. Like you see what he can physically still do. And yeah, it's certainly something that would boost the club in really important ways. Um, okay, yeah. Final word.
From an emotional point of view,
Yeah,
there's
that's what I was talking
nothing that
about
I
too.
would there's nothing that I would like more. And I think
Yep.
even more so myself as somebody who goes to the stadium and goes to the games,
Hmm.
from an emotional point of view of actually being able to say goodbye uh, to this wonderful footballer who
Yeah,
has given us so much joy. Um, like that the emotional reason for wanting him back is very strong. The rational part of me is not convinced, neither money wise, and sporting wise. I guess it would depend. Like, hey, what do we have to sacrifice
right.
for it to make happen? Are we going to lose Ansu and Dembele and Frenkie de Jong just so that we can get Messi back? Um, I
That
don't know
feels
if
too
that's a
much.
good
Yeah.
idea. Um, on the other
I
hand,
mean,
if
or are you going to have to even freeze out Gabi of like like minutes, like in the long term? Like when you're talking about having him as a midfielder, that with that rotation, like is this going to in some way halt or stunt Gabi's development in major ways? Like, I mean, do you want 10 years of
Mhm,
Gabi, or do you want that 1 year of Messi? It's short term versus long term. And the one thing I say though about like the short term thing is that football changes and teams change and injuries happen and everything in world football changes so much between 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? So it's like it's like it's. I mean, I'm a big NBA fan too. So teams that make the decision in the moment usually get the championship or usually get rewarded for making that short term error, and then you kind of deal with all of it afterwards, right? It's just when you make
mhm,
that big gamble and then you don't win, that's the problem, right?
yeah.
And that's why when Laporte even made this big gamble, and everyone's like, "Oh, Barcelona win the Champions League, their season's over," and yet Xavi is looking like at this point again he has a half a foot into a domestic treble. So it's like it's hard to
Mhm.
argue that that go for broke that they did. Yeah, it failed in the Champions League, but all right.
Uh,
Speaking
and
of,
no,
yeah,
and here also, we're just going to continue talking about this. I know you want to change topics, but
I'm trying.
you
Eric
know,
Garcia is waiting for us, Levon. Eric, I cannot make Eric wait much longer. But
fuck
yes,
Eric, he
please
can
talk
wait.
about Messi instead of Eric Garcia.
No, but I mean, um, how has Messi done in the Champions League the last 5, 6, 7, 8, the last 8 years? How has he done in the Champions League? Because at that level of the game, where you go against the really, really good teams, that's what that's when you're gonna suffer. So that's why Barcelona suffered when whenever we got like uh, to quarter or semifinals. We've been suffering
Mhm.
at Paris Saint-Germain. I mean, he actually joined a team that came off of a Champions League final, and he did not make that team better in the Champions League. Far from it. Is it all his fault? No, the balance is off. But here again, like the balance at Barcelona is probably going to be off as well.
Right.
So yeah, if he comes back, I think the league uh, should be very very doable. But hey, expect us to suffer in the Champions League again, which is the least of my worries because I'm okay. Like emotionally, I'm okay with us not doing well in the Champions League, but having Messi back for 1 or 2 more seasons where I get to properly say goodbye to the guy.
Mhm.
The only thing that worries me is okay, if Messi is back, does that mean that we have to sacrifice Ansu, Frenkie de Jong, Araujo
Right.
in order to make that happen? Like that freaks me out. Is Laporta gonna sell another 20 years of um, merchandising or
Yeah.
whatever in order to make it happen? That would freak me out.
Yep. Those are all fair. But and fortunately, I think what could really solidify the middle of the field, of course, is putting the trust in Xavi, and finally considering a topic, Levon, that you and I have teased before, but never really dug into. You and I have kind of pushed this one to the side, not really committed to it. But Xavi has said that Eric Garcia could be a pivot in the Rafa Marquez mold, and he did play the pivot at times for Barcelona, but he played pivot more. I mean, even in the later years of his career at Atlas when he returned home in the Mexican League. But even at Red Bulls, he played at center back, mostly center back at Barcelona, but for the Mexican national team as well. Like what most casual fans, if you will, know him as is actually a defensive midfielder for Mexico. So Xavi did. It was a fair comparison. Like this is a center back, but also there might be some pivot abilities in there. And the fact that, yeah, I mean, it wasn't just Twitter user 004283 Barca fan asking for this. This is actually Xavi saying, I have these ideas. But I don't know. There's like three different ways this could go, right? This is that there are links that Eric Garcia is wanted by Arsenal. That could just be Barcelona dipping their toe and saying, okay, maybe Arsenal don't actually want Eric Garcia, but what if they did? Because he came from Man City, Barcelona. Like, what if Arsenal did want him? What's his market, right? And they're kind of testing that. And then there is a potential that, hey, Eric Garcia is getting no minutes. Xavi does want to throw this kid a bone because, I mean, for everything you've ever heard about Eric Garcia, he's great in the locker room. He's great with his role in the team. He's someone like Sergio Roberto that you just want to have around. In a Catalan club, he's a Catalan kid that you just want to have there. So I think it seems like Xavi also just wants to throw him a bone. And then there is this option C that is, what if Eric Garcia can, we'll say, prove the doubters wrong, and that, I, of course, am as concerned as everyone else is about him and his ability to especially turn under pressure. Like I've said it before, and I've touted this, that his progressive passing is, I mean, the numbers say it. Like he is like top 95 percentile in progressive passing. Like even from a center back spot, especially when you're playing against the Elches and the Almerias, like having him on the field offensively going forward makes you better. But there is so much concern about his ability to turn, change direction, and be able to dribble himself out of trouble that we have really never gotten to see. He's also been never challenged in those ways. But I mean, I think it's fair to have a fair degree of skepticism for a player that I actually really, really like, if that's fair.
I'm hugely skeptic as well, and I don't know. I think we follow different people on Twitter because 999 times per day I see somebody saying, "Hey, we should try Eric at pivot. We should try
I gotta
Eric."
credit my face. Listen, I gotta give credit to the Facebook group. No, I think
they've been saying this for like years, and now they're like, "It's finally happened. I always said it." But there's a huge difference between you being a central defender and somebody passes you the ball. You have so much space. You have the whole pitch in front of you. And then you pass forward, as opposed to receiving the ball from a central defender, having one or two opponents in your back, having to turn away from them, and then passing the ball. That's the difference is huge. So people say like, "Oh, it would work because of his passing ability." No, maybe it could work because of his defense. And his defense at that position with his intelligence and his anticipation, because there he can anticipate while still having people in behind him to cover. If something is like, if it's going to work, it's because of his defensive capabilities. But I see it as a huge change. I must honestly say, I don't remember Rafa Marquez playing that many games in as a pivot for Barcelona, and there's a reason that he went back to central defense.
Well, he didn't really, because it was Yaga Torre, it was Keita, it was, I mean, Xavi would even drop in deeper when the needed.
And before that, it was Motta, it was Danielson, So, did he play there every now and then? Yeah, sure, because and mhm. and then he goes to the Mexican League, and he plays pivot. Yeah, because it's the Mexican League, and the level is so much lower that you put somebody of such a high level there.
I mean, he was 37, 38 at the time when he left, even when he left Red Bulls. I mean, it's the same thing. Like
Yeah,
how
but
Danny Alves played the pivot in the Brazilian league, right? It's the same thing.
exactly. Or that Dani Alves went to Brazil and he played number 10.
Right.
Alaba, he's a left back for Bayern Munich, and then he plays for Portugal, and they put him the 10 because he's the best guy on the pitch.
Yeah.
So, but at this level, for Eric Garcia, who, from what I understand, has always been a central defender,
Hmm.
even
Always.
during
Yep.
his youth. Um, I know he's an extremely intelligent player, and I think defensively, it's very interesting because he's smart positionally and he anticipates very well, so his pressing will be good. Um, I think I think it's doable. I think it's doable because Barcelona has an incredible team, and we're playing against teams that are, their whole team is not as expensive as our most expensive player.
Hmm.
But I think it is far from optimal, and
Yeah.
I don't think it will ever be his best position.
I also don't, I also, not to be super skeptical, I also don't know if we ever even see it because this season, if we see it, it might be for 2 or 3 games at the end of the year. If Barcelona do win the Liga and they're up by 9 points 2 weeks into May, because there are only 12 match days left. And even the squad list that was named, like Xavi said, hey, I mean, he's been saying it all year, but Pablo Torre might get some minutes, right? You see that Astanas, Alarcon, Ellis Garrido, who there have been good reports about, he's an attacking midfielder. He's also in the squad this week. And so the squad is constructed with Rafinha out. Well, he's suspended. And then Dembele, Frankie de Jong is hurt. Pedri's still out. And then Christensen, obviously, it doesn't affect that rotation. But looking at who's available in the squad list, I don't, again, like Xavi said it, he wants to go up 15 points. I don't see how Busquets doesn't start both on the weekend because again, he didn't play international break. So I think as much as you can say Xavi, hey, Eric Garcia as a pivot, we're mixing that idea, or Pablo Torre as a midfielder, we're having fun with that idea. A team that has Busquets and Gavi and Kessie and Roberto, three of those 4 players are going to start in the midfield. And then I think 3 of those 4 players again start in El Clasico. You swap out whoever it was, Kessie or Roberto as the other midfielder in that. And then even on that back line, like I don't see how you're mixing it up too much. Like I think you can see, yeah, if they go up 3-0 on Elche or 4-0 on Elche, Alarcon, Astanis, they might be thrown on the field. Alex Garcia at least making the bench. That's a big deal for him. Casado's in the squad as well. But Eric Garcia might come off as he might come on maybe as a pivot for the last 6 minutes against Elche if they're up 3-0. Like I
No,
just would say, like, I'm just tempering my expectations. I don't think there's going to be some like huge like, oh my gosh, Eric's at the pivot and Alex Garcia got to start, and you know what I mean. Like I just don't think Xavi's going to reinvent the wheel. I mean, maybe Paulo Torre gets a start against Elche. If he doesn't get a start there, like again, he's not going to start. But I
I
just think
think
Xavi really, really wants to win the league and wrap it up here. And yeah, putting 15 points of pressure on Real Madrid is something you don't want to take that chance.
it's more likely that Eric's going to start as a pivot than that Pablo Torre gets to start
Really?
against Elche, because Xavi said it. Like first that rumor was floated,
Mm-hmm.
and then he actually confirms that that is true. He's been training as a pivot. He's been training as a midfielder, and that is doing well. So yeah,
I mean, he did say he wanted Pablo Torre to get minutes like now. He did say
yeah,
the same thing,
and
but he also been
and
saying
he,
that all year.
and he also said that Pablo Torre has
The best
um
set pieces, yeah.
the best set
That was
pieces.
interesting. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was interesting.
it was like it's true that we don't have great set piece takers
Have they scored
on
a
the team.
direct free kick since Messi?
No,
Right.
no, but also
I
like
also
his
don't think. Well, I would also say I don't. In terms of like positions as to where Messi used to get fouled, or even when Suarez would drop in and get fouled, I feel like the positions where Barcelona get fouled are not in these advantageous like on goal positions anymore. I just feel like there's less opportunities for those. What is that, like a 25-yard direct free kick? I just don't even see those
Mhm.
chances as much. And then it's usually Rafinha who takes them. Well, Rafinha's been taking them recently, with when he starts, but
Rafinha
yeah.
has a good Rafinha has a good pass though. Like
Mhm.
he can cross the ball in really well. Um, so yeah, I mean, it would be nice if Torre gets a couple of starts and does well. And apparently Pablo Torre feels that he has improved a lot this season. I've been reading or hearing, and he wants to stay
Mhm.
at Barca next season as well. Um, who knows? Like who knows what happens there? But yeah, I'd be happy to see him start. I would be happy to see Eric Garcia in midfield, and if it works, it could also be a way of getting Eric Garcia minutes, so that when we sell him this summer,
Mhm.
we can sell him for a bit more money. I think the Arsenal link makes sense because Arteta knows him from their time at Manchester City.
Mentally, yep.
I also think that Eric Garcia is a lot better defender than a lot of people give him credit for. So, if we can get 20, 25 million from him from Arsenal, that that would be amazing, right? Because we kind of need some money this summer. Even
Yeah.
if we don't sign, we need money to renew. So,
Yep. Yep. A lot of players. So,
yeah.
well, I mean, fortunately for Barcelona, or I guess unfortunately, Danny Ceballos' camp did call me up and tell me that he will be going, that being Gavi, to Bayern Munich for free, of course, because he doesn't have a first team contract. So, and why would Danny Ceballos' team say a negative thing about Gavi? I just don't know why. I don't think there's anything here, right? The whole Gavi, Danny Ceballos stuff with the Spanish national team, pretty. I mean, Levo, which is they've had some hit and miss stuff since they started. But the report claimed that Gabi didn't really want to show up to a signed event, but then it came out later on with some investigations from Mundo Deportivo and Cope asking his camp that he just took a whack on the head, which again is not surprising that Gabi got knocked up in training in some way and that he wasn't feeling too great. So, I mean, if anything, I was more worried about, oh, did Gabi suffer concussion that they're kind of just like, shh, you know what I mean, hush hushing about. So if Gabi doesn't start against Elche, and he's rested for Real Madrid, that actually lends me to think like, hey, that whack on the head might really be something because they want to sit him out. You know what I mean? Like he's injured but not injured in a way that NFL players are injured but not injured with the head stuff. So you know how I always feel with the head stuff. So take that seriously, but don't take any of the rest of it seriously. It's just it's a lot of nonsense. But it does at least I like it a little bit because it does kind of it does make the Spanish national team worse, but it does kind of give more fuel to El Clasico midweek. And I think as much as we like hate it, like we talk about the romance of it, there is something about Real Madrid and Barcelona, having these matches in El Clasico that matter. I mean, that last one in the league was, I mean, amazing. Like just
Oh my
even though
God,
as you and I
yeah.
talked about leading up to it, it felt like nothing. It felt like nothing. But then the result happened. You're like, okay, that El Clasico made sense. As
Did,
oddly as that sounds.
did we talk about that match? Was I on the pod? Was I on the pod after that match? I don't think so. Oh my God, man.
No, I did see your tweets that you said it was like dull leading up to it in a way that you were surprised by.
Yeah, no, yeah. Because you guys know I live like 2 minutes from the stadium, and often on match days, hours and hours and hours before the game, you hear the fans. You go outside, you see a lot of people. Like I was just chilling at home on Sunday, and I was like, I think the match was at 9 o'clock, and I thought, well, at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, there will already be people outside drinking, and there will already be like chants going on and stuff. But nothing, man. I went out at 7:30, and it was so much more quiet. Like it seemed like as if it was a game against Elche. And then it kind of like livened up a bit, like the last hour before the game. But in the stadium, man, the, the ambience in the stadium was amazing. It was so good.
Yeah,
It was
you
so
could
good,
tell.
and like we just exploded at the last goal when Kessie scored. We just exploded. Oh man, no, it was a beautiful night. Uh, I've been to every Clásico since Valverde became coach, um, which means that honestly, I did not have a lot of good Clásicos in the Camp Nou. I had the 2-2 where um, Messi equalized, or no, Messi put us ahead, but then they equalized. In the end, it was 2-2. I had the 5-1, which was fun. But all of the others were either like drab 0-0s or just miserable losses. Never humiliations, but just, you know,
1-0, 2-0. Yep.
just
The Vinicius Junior
and
one,
and
the Modric one. Yeah.
yeah, and just disappointing games at home. Like not good games. Not even like really exciting games that we ended up losing. No, it was just like just mediocre affairs. The games in the Bernabeu were usually quite good, but the ones in the Camp Nou were always like very, very disappointing. Until this one. Oh my God, this is the best Clasico I've been. This was better than the 5-1 to be in the stadium. It was more fun.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's great
Lot
to
more
hear. I
exciting.
just said
Yeah.
I think you felt it through the TV. And speaking of the Camp Nou, our last little topic here, it's not even a topic, just congratulations are due to the Barca Femení in front of 54,000 plus fans at the Camp Nou, made the semifinals of the Champions League. And I spoke with a little doubt on Tuesday's show, not about them beating Roma, but about how positive I was about the unavailable who are returning. But the team emphatically, even without Alexi Putellas, with Paredes even just returning, and then Claudia Pina, she wasn't there, and Graham Hansen got the start. But the team emphatically crushed Roma 5-1 in front of, again, 54,000 plus. Raffo scored the opener and the third goal. Nappy Leon scored a really nice curling goal. I think that's the one to find if you only watch one highlight. And then Ashwala got a tap in. Patri made a 5 with a header near the end. And now they will face Chelsea in the semis. And while Wolfsburg and Arsenal contest the other one, those are 4 good teams. And I'm telling you now, though, that people who haven't watched Barcelona, because, again, watching the Barcelona can be difficult for most around the world, but most of what you are going to hear is that Arsenal are the favorites. I'm just telling you now, like, that's what's going to be said. And then, of course, it's going to be world football is going to look at this from a Chelsea view as far as them taking down Lyon in dramatic extra time fashion, and probably have not forgotten the Champions League final where Barca blew them off the field. So it's going to be about like Chelsea's revenge tour more than it is about Barcelona fighting their own redemption for losing to Lyon last year and then coming back, and just how talented they are. Now, again, that said, if Alexi Putellas does return like she's supposed to in the next week or two to the field, and all of a sudden, I mean, I can't see how she'd hit the ground running, but let's say she does, that makes Barcelona easily the favorite, because if there's one player from Barcelona who's recognizable, it's Alexia.
When are the semis?
The semis in a few weeks.
Oh, okay. Might come a bit too early then for her.
I agree.
To really because she's been out for
9
a long
months.
time, right? 9 months.
Yeah, the ACL,
yeah. I don't follow it that much, but a friend of mine, Isaiah, he told me like, "Hey, you at the game?" Like, this was like on Tuesday or Wednesday, the quarterfinals, and I was at work actually, and I actually asked him like, which game? And he's like, the quarterfinals. Like, which quarterfinals? Barca Femení against Roma. I was like, oh, is that today? No, I didn't know that they were playing. But I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to go against Chelsea. See how much the tickets are.
Well, I mean, they've been reasonable so far, and I mean, I think there's going to be 80. My guess is for Chelsea, it's going to be 85 plus. Is my guess. But yeah, so that's great. It is that time of the season, and last season I was more focused on the Femení even because the men had nothing to worry about. But this season now, I mean, there is a lot of trophies that could be coming the way of both the men and the women for Barcelona. It's an exciting time. So yeah, I mean, Levon, over the last few years, you and I have had some negative endings of podcasts, but I have nothing but just positive things to say at the end of this one. So yeah, onward and out to the next one. So unless Barcelona lose to Elche, and then the next time, and then we just get to blow up the show for next week. So, but either way,
and then we're still 9 points ahead.
Exactly.
Elche is a trick game, huh? Because everybody expects us to win this game, but they're gonna fight.
Well, they also might actually. I mean, they might actually fire their manager at halftime because they have gone. What is there? 7 managers this season, so they actually might fire him at halftime, and they might call you down. Just keep your phone on because they might need you. I mean. But yeah, I mean, maybe Elche. I mean, how many times can you try the manager bump? Like, oh, we got a new guy in. Maybe he can motivate the troops, and they've done it like 7 times already, 5 times.
But then out of nowhere, all of a sudden they play well against you.
Yeah, somebody makes it work. Yeah, I mean, and also their goalkeeper also always does fantastic. What is it? Eddie Baggio, right? I think it is.
It's not Shorty. Where's Shorty Masip?
He is at Valladolid.
Ah, right. He's a Valladolid. Because the shirt color is the same, right? Similar.
Yeah. Badia.
That's why I'm mixing them up.
Yeah, he always plays great. Well, Edgar Badia means we have to close the show. Like, talking about Edgar Badia is too much. So anyway, follow Levon on Twitter down in the shows below, or don't. Again, that's up to you. Who knows if Twitter will be a website soon, but Twitter and Instagram for us, @SportsLorePod. Also on TikTok, closed Facebook group, Patreon, YouTube. You know where to find us, as well as the merch store, which I always remind does exist. So thanks so much for listening to the show. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. And Forza Barca.
Visca Barça.